Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another lovely episode of InWorldz News. Uh, Today, we're going to be covering the roadmap. In case you couldn't tell from all the people in the crowd, it obviously is an important episode for everybody. I want to first say a great, big, huge thank you to my co-host, Wolf Hartnell. Hi, Wolf.
Hi, I'm excited about this one too.
You and everybody else. And I haven't figured
Yeah.
out, but we seem to have a tuna thief laying next to us. I'm not
Oh
quite sure
yeah.
how that happened. Yeah, but it had something, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
So he's sort of hiding
Well,
it, blinking his blue eyes.
he mentioned something about an OCD tendency to have it balanced, so the InWorldz logo is in the back. So sounds like that requires therapy to me, but whatever works.
Therapy, yeah, it's all a good thing. So I have a quick announcement. Um, Events coordinator in Worlds would like everybody to know that she is still taking merchant submissions in for the in Worlds birthday party coming up in April. So if you want to be part of that, there's also a big thing that's going on that I'm not sure actually if I'm allowed to say it about it or not. Maybe talk to Astoria. She could probably tell you whether or not I'm allowed to say anything about it. So we're looking for some merchants there as well. So if you guys are interested, please get a hold of events coordinator, and she will get you set up with parcel, region, whatever it is that you're going to be needing, and get you all going for the In World's birthday bash that's coming up. And we'll have a whole episode about that too. But that's down the road. So today, as I said earlier, we're going to be covering the InWorldz Roadmap. Now, I need to preface this with something so people sort of understand. I chose to do a roadmap that did not cover an entire year. And the reason for that is because software wise, technology wise, it simply does not make sense to try to schedule things out a year because things can change so quickly when you're dealing with multiple devs who are working on code, etc. So I'm doing my roadmap for 6 months. So expect that in another 6 months, we're probably going to have another show about where we're going for the next 6 months.
Hmm.
One of these things that it was really important. InWorldz truly never really has had a quote complete roadmap of where it was going or what it was doing. So I really had to start from scratch as far as making sure that we had a roadmap that was available and that the devs had something that they could really update and something that I could actually update as well. And I'm not just going to go talk about devs. By the way, there's a lot more in action that most people don't know. But we're going to start with the devs first because I know that you guys have some really, really big concerns, especially when it comes to inventory servers, your assets, etc. So I want to let you know that those are actually being addressed. Currently, as a lot of you know, Trank is doing his own thing with Slidewave LLC. That was a company that he started after he got to Texas. So that's one of his big things that he's working on. It's something that Trank's always wanted to do, and it's something that he's really excited to be doing. It doesn't mean that he's not around. It just means that he's a little bit more focused on that, but he still helps the devs out with various things when they need it, and he's there to bounce ideas off of, and put his input onto various different things that we've discussed as far as fixing things and whatnot. So he's there, but he's not there. If you understand what that means. Next, Jim Turber is at an age where he really needs to make sure that he has a pension, which is kind of important. Um, Obviously, InWorldz doesn't have a pension. I mean, he's been paid by us, et cetera, but that was paying his bills, getting his house, doing the things that he needed to do. And so he's actually got a full-time job, but he is still retained by InWorldz for doing work, especially making sure that the GitHub is gatewayed, that is for Halcyon and for InWorldz. He's doing some work that we're going to get into that I'll be breaking out the projects and where they're going. We then have Cinder, who is working on our viewer. And if you know who Cinder is, Cinder does primarily alchemy, but she's the one who makes all the changes for the in-world specific viewer so that we get everything that we need that is fixed. Then we also have Ricky. Sorry, I'm reading Lexi, and I should know better. I'm just going to tune Lexi out. We
Always
have
good.
always a good idea. Yes, definitely. We have Ricky. Ricky is actually the son, if you know him, Vinhold Starbrook. He came to InWorld several years ago. Vinhold is doing his own grid using the Halcyon software. And they have been working a lot on the Halcyon side of things. They don't really work on the InWorld side of things per se, but since InWorlds uses Halcyon, they work on things that do get applied to InWorlds. So I needed to break that out for everybody so that you understood. And then we have Mike Chase, and Mike Chase has his very specific projects, which you know, such as the bento, and he's wanting to work on server-side baking, et cetera. He's got various specific functions of what he works on as well. So I want you to understand who the devs are, that they do actually exist, and they really are there. So we're going to start there so that everybody knows where InWorldz is at as far as developers, et cetera. Now, let's cover assets, because assets are just so huge for you guys, and I know that you've really had a hard time with them. Part of the problem is we had several options that were available to us back a couple of years ago when we decided to go into doing our uh, data for the actual assets. And Rackspace promised us that it would be just like big data, that it would perform just like big data. And if you're not aware of what big data is, that would be something like your AWS service that a lot of you are probably familiar with just in cloud service technology. They promised us that this was all going to work. It was going to be just as fast. It was going to do everything. And it was going to be the best thing ever, sliced bread. So we programmed ourselves to take advantage of that. Now, one thing that we've always said as an actual company is, if there is something that can be broken, we will break it. If you have a company that has servers, we will find some way to break it. It's just the way our business is, and we're not we're not real. We're not like your standard blog page who can get the feeds real fast. We have actual assets that are actual data that need to be fed to us at a very quick point. So that being said, a lot of you also know that I have posted over the years about, when you have fast moving assets, et cetera, because I want you to sort of understand, because it's really difficult sometimes for me to really make you understand in text. But let me see if I can try to do this. Every prim that you have, every piece of everything on your region that goes on your region, every time you make it do something, it rewrites as a new asset to our system every single time. So you can't, what we call, they're immutable objects. So therefore, you can't take a prim, do a twist, and it saves that prim with a twist. It doesn't do it. It has the original prim that you put out, then you do a twist. Now we have a new prim with a twist, along with the original prim that you originally put down. So imagine like your inventory, you're building something, right? And you do this great big build and you're over on the sandboxes. So you say, okay, it's time, I need to take this into my inventory. Well, now you have a saved version of that entire build that you did. We have every step of your build in our system. Every time you changed a texture, every time you did a different script in it, every time you made a change to the script, we have it. It is stored because they cannot be mutated. So based on that, yes, and I agree as well, but this is the way the Linden Lab protocol was originally written. So we can't break away from it because of the viewers, the systems, everything. We've had to follow this exact same protocol. It is definitely not something that we would have done on our own originally. So based on that, yes, our assets have grown. They've grown tremendously, okay? And part of the other problem is, if you know anything about computers, and we're going way back to my computer training days. If you imagine your computer as a CD, an actual CD that's sitting inside of your computer, which of course technically that's exactly what it is. And when you first get a brand new computer, you start installing all your good stuff on it, and it takes all these little sectors and it starts writing to the CD, going around and around and around and around. And that's what it does until the disk fills up. Now you say, oh, shoot, my disk is all filled up. Now I have to remove some stuff. So you start removing things. So it takes out these chunks of what you remove. So the next time you install something, it starts moving things into those chunks that you just recently vacated. This is why some of you have had to, over the years, sit there and actually work on your hard drive to get it to be actually all in sequence again. It's really kind of a big defrag. Yes, exactly. Defrag is a big thing on hard drives. So Imagine now our assets are sitting up there. So every time you pull an asset, you're making a recent call to an asset, and it's sitting across a vast array of servers. So the system has to call and find which server it's sitting on. Then you make a change, and then you put it back up again. And now we have a new location for it. So I want you to understand from, if you can envision this, the actual reason why your assets seem to be slowing down. Some of it is just the fact that it's just taking too long to serve from Rackspace's data down to us, which is really a huge problem, and it's probably the main problem that we have. So one of our best methods that we have come up with in order to alleviate this problem is what we are calling the WIP LRU. We have a system in place right now that's called the WIP. The WIP is actually what goes and it actually gets our assets and it fetches it to you, to your viewer, and that's what does most of the talking with our asset servers in between the simulation servers. What we're doing is we're creating one that's called the WIP LRU. The WIP LRU is going to be a cacheable program. So your recent assets that you request will come down, and then they will be stored in a cache file on an actual separate server where they are easy access every time. So for somebody like Judy who's flying her planes and whatnot, her most recent planes will always be in that cache, but there will be a time expiration on those assets. So if you don't use that asset again, you're going to lose it. Not really. You're not going to lose it. It's just going to go back up into the main storage of where all the other assets are. And another asset that gets requested by somebody else will be made available. An asset, so that anybody knows or doesn't know, asset is anything you build. It's my hair. It's my jeans. It's the top that I'm wearing. It's the table sitting in front of me. It's the bowl of apples. Those are all assets. We consider all of that assets. Anything sitting out in the world is considered an asset. Anything in your inventory is an asset. So, anyways, the bestest idea for us to run with at this point is to do this LRU. Now, the LRU is going to have a lot of different changes from the original. Yeah, I don't. You'll have to talk to Wolf Teal. I don't know where your rug went. You can yell at him. The big thing about this is that when we do this, it will also open up some other areas. One of the things that I saw in the dev chat this morning that Zauber had asked was, when you're uploading textures and sculptures and whatnot, we have ranges that can be done, and the LRU is going to be able to do that. Right now, the WIP doesn't do it. It just has a broad range and it just throws everything up there. But this will help with the download sizes and the how big it is. It'll actually do the uploads and downloads the way they should be. So WIP LRU is the single highest priority item on the dev's task list at this particular moment because it is so high for you guys. According to the roadmap that we laid out for the WIP LRU, it was started back in September, and I'm sorry for my dog. And we're expecting it to be done ready for testing in mid-March, early April, I'm going to say. So I'm asking you guys, I know it's a lot. I know that I just barfed a whole bunch of information on you that probably went over a lot of your heads. But understand that this is the single highest priority item that we have on our work list right now because we know that this is killing a lot of when you guys are coming in and you're doing the things that you need to do, you simply can't get it done. Alongside of that, we have another little problem, which is called AIS v3. AIS v3 is the new Linden Lab protocol for your inventory. They are going to be phasing out their current system and phasing in a new system. Now, to be fair, the new system actually is quite good, and it needs to be phased in as well for us. So that you are aware, Firestorm Viewer will not be keeping the old code for inventory for OpenSim, and last I understood, Firestorm has said it is going to quit developing for OpenSim. So, vastly important that we keep tabs on that. It is rumored that within the month, Linden Lab is going to be switching off and over into this ASV3 version of your inventory. It's good in the sense that it really does streamline how your inventory is fed to you. So I want you to know that. And in that case, that way you'll be all set. But yeah, AIS V3 is actually the second most highest priority item on our work list right now. That one has a little bit of ways to go yet. The AIS V3 was started last month. It's about halfway done right now. That one is assigned to Jim, so he's doing his best. But I sort of took his priorities and told him that my registration issues on my webpage needed to take preference over this because we're having some failures on the registration on the webpage, which we're also going to get to because I have a lot to cover. Then we have the other things that aren't the rest of the stuff that we have for the devs aren't high priority like those two particular items. Inventory assets. Without inventory assets, we have nothing. So those are the two biggest ones that need to actually be worked on. The next things that are getting worked on is a mope fix, which is the non-zero face not working for mope. Any of you who have worked with mope, which is media on a prim, you'll know that if you try to use it on any other face of the prim, it does not work. So that Mike is actually taking up the reins on that one, and he is going to get that fixed. He's been looking at it, so that's his big thing.
Yeah, he's looking at a bunch of other issues that we've got with that as well that other people have had, but he's trying to bundle them all into one thing and try and get everything fixed. He's really keen to get that working.
Yes. The other thing Mike is working on is server-side baking, which we know a lot of you have asked for, and that is one of his big things. If I recall correctly from the meeting that we had, which was very late at night the other night, he's got a lot of the little bit parts of that working, but he needs to really be able to get in, test, and whatnot, which was actually what our dev meeting was about the other night. Was I needed to be able to get all of my devs the ability to do testing on Beta Grid, which I'm going to segue off for just a little bit. I'm going to digress here just so that you guys understand something. Beta Grid is where we do all of our testing at. And anytime we do major code overhauls and changes, everything goes to Beta Grid first. Then from Beta Grid, once we know that things are working, we take it and we put it over on the sandboxes. Once we are actually, on the sandboxes, then we determine whether or not it can go to the whole grid. Typically, this works very, very well. Sometimes we have some issues that we didn't really see coming in, and so it makes for life to be a little bit more difficult. Things break that you just don't expect to break. So one of the things that I'm going to be putting together is I'm going to be putting a whole task list of things to test for when we're on the Beta Grid and on the sandboxes. So when you guys, we're going to be putting a call out to you when we do these major releases to come and test. You don't have to go to the Beta Grid if you don't want to. Totally understandable if you don't want to convert all your inventory, etc. We can do that. That's not a problem. But you can test on the sandboxes and just go through the checklist to make sure that everything has been tested. Because if we ask the devs to do it, we may never ever see a release candidate ever again. I'm just saying. So getting you guys to help us out with the testing and have it uniform to where you know exactly what we're looking for, and we want to make sure everything is tested and working properly, that will be a really huge help to us. So you don't have to, you're under no obligation, obviously, but if you can, it's great. So we want to put that out there, and I just sort of wanted to digress off to let you know that this is something else that's a very high priority on my end on the documentation series, because we find things break and it was never even meant to break. It just did. And if we don't have these unit tests to make sure that things are still stable and accessible, well, then, we have other issues that we need to work at. So I wanted to cover that. And there goes my other dog now because, hey, why not? The other thing that is being worked on, I'm not going to go into the administrative side of software development that's going on because that's really up to you guys don't need to know about that stuff. The other thing is a project that Ricky is working on. It is called Anaximander. Anaximander is our mapping system for the world map for the web and for InWorld in the actual viewer map. Ricky can explain it far better than I can. It's a much better mapping system, and it's a lot less code, and it also makes things a lot prettier.
Yeah.
That was the best gist I got out of
Yeah, I mean,
it.
our system that we use at the moment, and that all the other grids use, unless they've switched over, used an idea where you've seen what the maps look like, where a tree will actually be a green square on the map. An Axamander actually produces a much more accurate overview map, and yet
Yep.
it's actually simpler in how it works. So it's going to be really good for the web map and the InWorldz map. We'll be able to use them a lot better, and it's much easier to keep them up to date as well.
Yes. And now that one has been ongoing. He started that like almost a year and a half ago. Year and a half ago, and he's actually close. He's 90% done with it. So you're going to be seeing some pretty major changes with the mapping system coming just from an Axamander. Now, that's Ricky, which means that it goes into Halcyon, which means that we pick it up and then we put it into the InWorldz stuff. So that'll just take a little bit. It's not hard to do, but it'll be tested on our beta grid first and also on Vinhold's grid as well. All right. So that's server side stuff. That's just the server side stuff, guys. That's really just server side. This is why we said every 6 months.
Can I add something in here? And you can take
Sure.
a break
Sure.
for a second. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about our grids and indeed about OpenSim, when we're looking at this, a lot of people think that we're running the same code, server code that Second Life runs. Second Life open sourced the viewer code. It's one of the last things that Philip Rosedale got done before the big investment. And it was a great idea, but it never got to the point where they open sourced and let people have access to the server code. So the OpenSim project was what we call reverse engineered, which means that we knew what the viewers did because that code had been open sourced, but we pretty much had to guess an awful lot of what the grid did. So that code was, well, I think I'll be honest to say, was pretty messy. Had a lot of problems with it. It was a volunteer project. InWorldz has taken that code, so not the Second Life code, but the OpenSim code, which was reversed engineered by volunteers from what the viewer did, and rewritten huge chunks of it. And that's still what's been going on. So when people sort of look at this and say, why does it store things that way? Why does it work that way? That doesn't seem like a very efficient way to do it. It was a very, very difficult task to do. InWorldz has done some brilliant work. The devs have done some incredible work on rewriting whole core sections of that, including the scripting language. But I did want to explain that because most people, I think, have a much more sort of optimistic view of where that background came from. We didn't get the viewer code and the server code and just get to modify that. We had to guess most of the server code. I say we, devs in general. And I think it's worth mentioning that because we talk about this stuff and about how things are being improved. And there is a question, why on earth would you store a full version of everything every time something's changed? Well, that's because, as Ellie said, that's how the viewers work. So that had to be how the code worked on the background. So there's a huge, in programming terms, there's a real fear of what are called legacy systems, where you pick up code that somebody else has written in the past that's evolved rather than grown in an ordered way, that's got all kinds of legacy issues that come with it. So that's a large part of what we're fighting when Ellie talks about the devs working on this stuff. So I wanted to explain that for the non-technical folks here, to say that that's a huge part of why these things take so long to sort out. Okay.
Okay. I got to drink some water. That was really nice. Thank you.
All right. I thought you sounded like you could do with catching your breath.
Yeah, a little bit. That was a lot just on that side. Something I should mention that Wolf did touch on. Yes, we've rewritten major portions at this point. InWorldz has rewritten 70% of the original OpenSim code. So
It's really impressive.
yes, 70% of it. Just that's why we
It's such a
say
small development team. Yeah.
when I tell people like HGB we're no longer OpenSim, I'm not just saying it because we've taken little chunks here and there. No, we've rewritten over the vast majority of it. So I just want I want all of you to understand that when we say we've rewritten it, we've really rewritten it. Okay, So now we're going to go into viewer. So another thing that is really important, that we don't just have server. We have a server, we have viewers, we have web. These are all big chunks of what has to change, and sometimes they have to change simultaneously. So it's really important that I stress that, because trying to plan some of these projects out requires us timing where we get them done and when they get them done correctly, so that we're not like pulling a dev from working on one thing while the other dev is working on this thing. They suddenly need the other dev to tell them what they need for that thing. Just we don't want that. So we're trying to time all of these particular projects so that each dev is working as they need to together, preferably. All right. So now we're going to go into the viewer side. Now, as I said, Cinder runs the viewer side stuff. Cinder just got done doing the parcel and chat distance rings. That is 100% done. But the other things that Cinder is going to be working on, as well as trying to keep on top of all the different developments and all that. Obviously, she's also helping with the AIS v3. Logging was done in order for us to see exactly how the AIS v3 is actually going to, how we have to handle it on our end. Again, the reverse engineering from the viewer to the server in order to make that actually work. So that's I think pretty much done. Area search. You guys have asked for area search. She knows you have asked for area search, so she's got that as a very high priority item for her to get done. She has not started it yet, but it is this is definitely on her high priority list. It won't take her a whole lot of time to do it. It's just a matter of she's got to actually sit down and do it. Object import export. This is also very high on Cinder's list.
Yeah.
Area search is you'll be able to type in what you're looking for in the chat, Kryto, and boom, it'll tell you exactly where it is. We sort of have a version of that as if we're trying to find something, we can typically do it, but it's a little monkey around to do. But this will be much easier for you guys. Viewer settings backup. She knows that this is also important. This is where you'll be allowed to take whatever view settings you have and save them off. And that way, if you get a new computer or whatever, you can just pop the settings in and boom, off you go. You don't have to go reset your entire viewer again. So she's good. That's actually fairly easy for her to do. Editable quick preferences. That's another thing that she's going to throw together again. And then the individual notifications. Individual notifications, instead of the, like when I log in and I have one big chunk that says I have 120 some odd, well, actually it just says 99 because it stops counting after 99. Notifications of groups, IMs, objects given to me, etc., etc. You'll actually get them to where they'll be broken down by group and versus objects given to you versus IMs, so that you have a better way to clear things out and go through them as you want to. So those are all super high on Cinder's list, and those are the things she expects to get done within the next 6 months. All right. The InWorldz viewer is basically based off of Alchemy. Not basically, it is based off of Alchemy. It is the Alchemy viewer. Cinder does the Alchemy viewer, and well, she works on the Alchemy viewer, and then she converts it over to InWorldz for us. So all of our skins, etc. That is something else that we're going to be looking at, because we know that there's a dearth of viewer skins, and we used to have a whole ton of them back in version 2. And we don't have those anymore. So we're going to be looking at doing some new viewer skins as well. I know we used to have some artists that did some really beautiful skins for the viewers. So Cinder and I are going to be looking at seeing who's going to be open to actually doing some of that stuff, and she'll get them incorporated into the viewer. Cool. There's also long range plan between Cinder and I. I had done this eons ago, believe it or not, but the project got shot down. And it was where we took all of these little buttons that you have here and we made them into icons that were much easier to actually just go and click on. And they weren't in the way. They were put off to the side where they were fairly easy, and they were in a circle so that you could just very easily pick which one you wanted to run and go off with it. We're probably going to be readdressing that this year. because I would really like to see something like that. It just seems more interface friendly. People who use computers, who use tablets, who use any kind of website these days, they're all going to be working on the whole. It should be able to be applied to the Linux viewer as well, Arcady, fairly easily. We just want to make it simpler for people because we're going to get into that in a little bit.
Exactly. That's why the skins are so important, is that ability to give people that choice, depending on the level of expertise or comfort, the choice between the interface that they use to make everything easier.
Yes, and the colors, because some people like certain colors and other people don't like other colors.
Yeah.
All right, the next thing is web development. So, a new and fascinating development, something that I have wanted for ages, is a complete rewrite of our web. Our web is a disaster. From a coding standpoint, it is just the world's worst nightmare. It's almost as bad as OpenSim. I'm not sure which one was really worse, the OpenSim code when we first started with it, or the web code. It's a toss up. It's six in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Anyways, as it stands, um, one of the biggest complaints that we've had over the years, and that even I've had when I've tried to make changes for doing sales or stopping sales, it's such a nightmare for us to have to go in and actually change any of the code. It's just, it makes me cringe when I think about it. So, one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be rewriting the web from a completely new framework. That framework is, I'm giving it a 6-month timeline on just building the framework. And the reason why I'm giving it 6 months on the framework is because Wolf's going to be doing it.
I am.
Yeah, wish him good luck on that one. Wish him lots of
Obviously
luck.
did something really bad in a previous life.
His karma's catching up to him.
Believe me, I have wanted to get a hold of that thing and tear it apart since I first signed up. So I'm on board.
You're actually going to have a lot of fun with it. So this is all.
I'm glad I get
thing.
to write it from scratch. I really didn't want to dive into the existing one and try and fix it.
You know, there are some times when I just say it's just not worth it.
No, it isn't.
Isabel,
really
please
isn't.
hold that until the end, please. Okay, so that takes care of that part. Now there are 4 projects going on in InWorld development. Okay, so one of them, actually 3. I'm sorry, my bad. I lied. One of them is a synchronous video player. Ricky is working on this for me. Because that'll become apparent when I segue into the business side of things. So we'll just leave it there. Synchronous video player. Just hang on to that thought, guys. Mike is working on the Bento Ruth avatar, which is 80% done, according to Mike. So you're going to be getting a Bento Ruth avatar. Yes, Bento. Yay. And to go alongside with that, he's also working on getting the Bento avatar appliers secured. So that way you can use appliers, and it's a scripty thing. And I'm so not into the whole bento thing, but I know for those of you who create clothes, hair, etc., this is a really, really big thing for you, that you're getting a Bento Ruth avatar and appliers that you can use.
It also opens up the possibility for a lot of different kinds of avatars. People who create dragon avatars and things like that in Second Life, because you can.
I know it's bento, but do you see a tail hanging off my butt? Come on.
So yeah, it's a big deal for a lot of things. Most people will only ever use it for the avatars, but it's a huge thing as far as advanced avatars are concerned.
Yes. So, okay, so now that covers pretty much all of the development stuff that it has been laid out for 6 months. And as you can see, there's actually quite a bit that I've just unpacked for all of you. It really, it's funny when I'm working in the day to day with the devs and whatnot, it really doesn't seem like it's a great big huge list. But now that I actually put it all out there, I sort of realize
that's the reason we plan things, is so that we can just look at everything that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks and not be terrified by the rest of it.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. Okay, so now on to the business side of things, which is more my department. On the business side of things, there's been some interesting things that I've sort of have let be put out there. So I'm sort of going to cover those things. So what I'm about to tell you could totally fall apart. So I don't want anybody pinning their hopes on this, okay? But it is something that is in negotiation and conversation, and it's been in the works really for years, to be perfectly honest. All right. Um, one of the things that through the years I've made lots of contacts, et cetera, and I don't believe in burning bridges if I really don't have to. The only time I really burn bridges is when I got to ban you as an avatar because you were copybotting. Then I'm going to
Hmm.
burn the bridge. That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in burning bridges because I usually find that it's just not a smart thing to do.
Hmm.
So there have been bridges that I have made and nothing has come out of them, etc. But I've known a couple of gentlemen for about 4 or 5 years at this point, and they know a lot of people. They know a lot of people. I know a lot of people. We all know a lot of people, but we've never been able to tie loose ends together and really make all those people come together as one grouping and say, yes, that this is what we're going to do. That's kind of sort of changed. So the way this is working out is that we've been approached because, as you know, we have the virtual currency, and of course, what's the big deal out there right now? It is cryptocurrency. It's a really, 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 really big, hot new thing, and a lot of people always said to me, "Well, you don't use Bitcoin." No, I really don't. I don't believe in using a currency that's not backed. That's just dangerous. Um, yeah, blockchain especially. So here's the thing: we have this group of people now. The neat thing is that they have a lot of contacts, especially in the music and movie industry. So now I'm not going to say that these are going to be, AAA feature movies, etc. They're not. But the people that they have are pretty much independent producers. So they do their shows, they do their movies, the music, etc. They're not actually signed by any major company in any way, shape, or form. And in today's day and age, that's actually, I think, kind of the way things are starting to go. I mean, if you look at YouTube, if you look at, Spotify and some of the different areas where you're finding music at, you're finding out that a lot of these people, I mean, look at Lady Gaga, who just went completely independent. She's totally on her own, doing her own thing. And I think it allows them to be more artistic and true to who they want to be.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really, really great thing. So it's kind of like we're breaking away from what corporations think we should be fed versus what we want to see. When I hear
Yeah.
about people on Twitch who are like just sleeping in their recliner and 400 people are watching, I'm like, really? It boggles my brain. No joke. But it really is. Independent content is a really, really great thing, and they have got the stuff for us. And over the last year and a half, they have spent the time uploading it so that they could license it to InWorldz to use for streaming music, for streaming movies. So we're thinking of an actual movie night. I don't know if you guys all know this, but I actually have a movie theater that Yadni built for me, where we actually get together as a group and we go watch a movie together. Um, an actual movie that was produced by somebody else.
Hmm.
Uh, then we can have TV shows, that are independently produced, et cetera. So yeah, it's not exactly what you're used to watching on TV, but hey, isn't it about expanding our horizons? If we all expanded our horizons to include virtual worlds, I think we can expand our horizons to give these independent artists some love. Um, and I think that would be really, really great. So, and then we have the music. They sort of tend to lean more hip hop, which I know for some of our audiences is not a big thing, and I'm really, really, sorry about that. But on the flip side, it'll also allow us to bring in new blood, younger viewers, younger users, younger residents to come in and actually, get some new and interesting takes on things. The other thing that we're moving towards is sort of moving this into an e-living platform. And I know that sounds kind of crazy. We saw SL try to do this, and unfortunately, they kind of fell down on it. And I think the biggest reason why they fell down on it was the fact that they didn't spend enough time with their partners, actually partnered to them and giving them the support and the love that they actually needed. For example, I see teachers come into grids all the time, and if they build it, they people will come. No, that's not necessarily the way it works. And you're asking a teacher to learn how to do modeling, scripting, how to do everything to get the interest going, to get their students there. You're expecting a teacher whose background is teaching and asking them to learn something totally new and alien to them and actually try to get it right and make it look good and have their students come in and actually learn. Some have been greatly successful, but in a lot of cases, in majority of cases, they have not. The reason for that is because this isn't their expertise. This isn't what they're supposed to be doing. We saw it
Hmm.
with the retail stores. You're asking them to go into a whole new platform and learn something that really isn't part of their job description. There
Yep.
is nobody in retail who knows who probably has a graphics degree or a modeling degree, or they don't have that. That's not what they do. Sure, they can set up, their displays, etc. These are the things that they do, but that doesn't apply the same way in a virtual. So we feel that the ball got dropped immensely on that.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to sort of go after that, but in a partner mode, more of where we supply everything for them. We
Yeah.
build it
It's a
out.
really cool idea.
We build it out. We do the scripting. We get everything laid out. They give us the approvals, the disapprovals, boom. And then everything is done. And all they have to do is focus on what they do best, which is selling.
Yep.
Literally. Let them do what they do best, and we will do what we do best. And that means, pulling from people here in our grid, for the scripters, for the builders, pulling different things. We have a gentleman who is a celebrity fashion designer, and that's in real life. And he has already talked about bringing his stuff into InWorldz. And so you would be able to purchase the InWorldz version along with the real life version, and you'd be able to do it with your eyes.
Yep.
That's the key. Um, so this is, like I say, this could all fall apart tomorrow. Okay, I mean,
Yep.
if anybody puts the wrong step forward at this point, it could just completely go kaboom. Um, but this is what we're working on. We're setting up the infrastructure. We're doing the talks. We're doing everything that we need to be doing to move us forward to that point. And we're moving very, very quickly because we do have these contacts and these things that are out there. And as the one gentleman who loves to say to me, he hates doing grocery shopping. Before I left the States, I lived in Texas. I did all my grocery shopping online through Shipped. Well, Shipped got bought out by Target, and now Target's being bought out by Amazon, for those of you who are not aware.
Hmm.
Um, and one of the things that we talked about was grocery stores, essentially, if you think about it. So instead of just having a flat 2D view, you'll be able to walk through an actual grocery store, grab the boxes off the shelf, the things that you want, and boom, place
Yep.
your order with your eyes and have it delivered to your location. I just
See,
want
one
everybody
of
to
the
think about
things,
that.
one of the reasons that I came to InWorldz was because InWorldz was daring, taking the risk and daring to be different to all the other grids, not just trying to be a cheaper or different version of Second Life, but to redevelop the technology to not just fix the things that were broken, but to develop new things. The technical marketplace at the moment is absolutely perfect for entrepreneurship, for coming up with ways to use this technology and brilliant new ideas. This is an area that I've always been incredibly passionate about. Yes, it's speculative. But the sort of things that we're talking about here is saying, what can we use this platform for? Because that's what InWorldz is. It's a platform, it's a technology to do some really amazing stuff with, for businesses to extend in a way that's much more technically able and smaller and more flexible to be able to cope with than some of the crazy stuff Second Life was trying to do in its early days with Coca-Cola and Mercedes and whatever. Nobody really knew what was possible then. The sort of stuff that we're looking at now is hugely exciting.
It's really an exciting time, and
It is.
um, for us, what was really great is, like I say, I didn't burn my bridge with these guys, and as again, it could all come to absolutely no fruition whatsoever. But we finally think that we hit on the right mix of circumstances to where it's the right time, and it's the right time for us to pursue the things that we have, and we all bring to the table various different ideas. So I mean, the one gentleman, he has the entertainment hookups. The other gentleman, he's got the marketing and the investment hookups. We've got somebody who we're talking to about doing the financial aspect, where I have one person who we're going to be approaching about the technical side. I'm more of the creative side, and I'll be handling the in-world stuff. So something I should make clear, because I was asked this, I am in charge of InWorldz. End of story. That's the way it goes, and that's not changing anytime soon. So I don't. The staff is not going to be changing. Nothing's going to be changing. It's just that we feel that this is the right time for InWorldz to really expand and grow, and we see a really good road path forward for doing this. And so, for those of you who think I haven't been doing anything, well, guess what? I've really been quite busy doing all of these talks. Getting everything lined up, making sure that we have the synchronous video, doing all the things that we need to do. In fact, they just bugged me about it again, so I need to bug Ricky about it again, make sure that we're on time with that. And because I really wanted to do this a couple weeks ago already, but we need that synchronous video because of where it's hooked up to. So I'm hoping that after you've heard all of this, you understand that InWorldz is not in a spiral plunge. I'm going to put out a call to you guys, because I know a lot of you do a lot of grid hopping, etc. One of the things that I am looking for this year, especially in the next 6 months, like you notice that I, at the beginning of this, I promoted Vinhold and the fact that he's using Halcyon, and he's using it for what he uses it for. His grid is he's doing more of a religious style grid with a church. He's a 7-day Adventist, and he's going to be having the interactive Bible stories, etc. I'm looking for grids who are doing something outside of the box.
Yeah.
Not just setting up a grid, looking to have their nightclubs and getting DJs from the other grids and trying to steal everybody else's customers. I want grids who are doing something outside of the box. That something is really great because it is a platform. And I don't care if they're using OpenSim or Halcyon. I want to see grids that are doing really cool, neat things with what they have.
Yeah.
And if you can find them, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do a little bit of a partnering with them. If they put stuff out, videos, ads, special events that they're doing, you're going to see them pop up on my Facebook. Doesn't mean I'm promoting another grid. It means I'm promoting the platform, because one of the
Exactly.
things that is most important to me this year is the fact that the metaverse needs to grow. InWorldz has always been very responsible in the fact that it has helped the metaverse to grow, but now the metaverse really needs to grow, and it needs to grow in a way that isn't just about taking OpenSim, opening it up, and then chasing everybody else's customers down because they don't have a marketing plan, a business plan, and they have no money to pay for tech or anything else. This is about really saying we want to partner with you and help you. The other side of the things that I will be doing this year is I will be working with the devs to write up the documentation for Halcyon, because Halcyon is a little neglectful on the documentation side for people who want to take Halcyon and run it as a grid. And
Yeah.
the reason I'm doing this is because by documenting everything that we have, and by getting other grids to use Halcyon, we will pick up developers who will help invest in Halcyon as a whole, which will hopefully help grow the entire thing. Halcyon is actually InWorldz Snoots. Halcyon is the 70% rewritten OpenSim code. It is exactly what is running InWorldz at this time. We took it, we made it open source for the Moses project, and we named it Halcyon. There. So there's the term. Now you know. No problem. So I have many prongs of things that I am working on this year. So I want you guys to understand that because I see I see some danger signs out there. Of course, I've been seeing them for a very long time, but I think this year, if InWorldz doesn't help to nail those signs down and say no, you're not going to get any bigger, then I think we'll be good. And we really need to focus on that. So seriously, if you hear of another grid that's doing some really cool things out there, whether it's education or, whatever they can see that they see for a platform that is completely out of the box, that is so just, if it's niche, I want to know. I really do, because I really want to work with them and help promote them and help promote the metaverse, because a lot of times all we hear about the metaverse is just a bunch of nightclubs and strippers. Let's get out of that, because the metaverse is so much bigger than that. And it's going to start with us. and with you, our lovely residents. So I'm asking for any of that information.
And can I just add on at this point? I mean, Ellie, you
Please
just
do.
referred to. I give you another chance to catch your breath. Um, yeah, as Ellie just said about the sort of the signs that are out there that are a little bit worrying. There's a lot of people saying about InWorld spiraling down and whatever. Somebody mentioned to me recently about some of the big stores that have left InWorld, some of the big creators. Um, Teal and I were hugely excited to see that Bad Cats is back, has got a store. Some of them they go, they come back. But what I've been saying to people is, all we've got to do is get excited about InWorlds again. Help it grow, get the word out there about it, do some of these amazing projects that other people aren't doing. And then those merchants will just come back. It takes far less for them to come back than it did for them to come in the first place. Their stuff's all here. They've got vendors and everything in their inventory. All we need to do is, instead of panicking and getting upset and getting overly dramatic that one more merchant has left the grid, is work on getting excited about the grid, and they'll come back. It really is that simple. We've seen people leave and come back. We've seen merchants leave temporarily and come back. Everything that we're talking about here, and us as residents being excited about it, brings people back. These people aren't gone permanently just because they've closed their stores down for, their own reasons or budget reasons or whatever at the moment. As we grow this grid back up, all those people will come back because it's dead easy for them to come back. All they've got to do is get a store and put their stuff out again. So I think we need to have far less of a focus on all these, supposed warning signs that the grid is dying or whatever, and just get excited about it again. I realize I feel like I'm preaching here, but I'm really not. It's honestly what I believe. And I think we'll start to see that very soon.
Okay, I got more water. That was great. Oh, did my
Excellent.
beaky? Okay. There's my beaky. I got more water, so I feel so much better, so much better. Um, yes. So I think that kind of sums up my roadmap. I may have missed a thing or three here because, as Snoot says, how do I keep up with all of it? But these are some of the things that I've really been working on, and I've only alluded to in the Discord. Only a few people have known about them, but I really, really wanted you guys to know that there is some movement going on behind the screen, and I'm not going to be able to talk about it a whole lot. I want you to understand that until we really finalize things. But I
Yep.
wanted you to know that this is where I am headed this year. As the administrator for the grid, I see several things that need to happen this year, and so I'm heading all of this up and saying this is where we're going. And yes, I am asking for your help. So because I can't do everything. And the contrary to the rumors, I am not everybody. Really, I'm not. So um having you guys understand where we're going is really great. So what I'm going to do, if you if Wolf, if you could take over for about 5 minutes and start fielding some questions for me, because I have to go AFK for just a moment,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to start answering your questions, guys, because I want this all to be here, and I want everybody to know that it's kind of an open book at this point. So I'm going to let I'm going to let yeah, exactly, Sophia. I wasn't going to say it. So let me just be right back, and Wolf will handle what he can. Otherwise, Wolf, if you can write him down so that we can get back to where we are when I come back, and
Yeah.
that'd be great. Give me a few minutes,
Okay.
guys.
Okay. I'm going to read back through some of these questions. Trouble, I've seen your question, and I'm sure that Elenia will be happy to answer that. I can tell you from what I know about what's going on behind the scenes that yes, that's not a concern at all. Otherwise, we wouldn't be looking at all of the future projects. We'd be in a very different place. But really, Elenia needs to answer that question properly. So what else have we got here? Right, you asked about Zalbert. Yes, Zalbert is on the plan. He is working on some of the other projects with other folks. He does still volunteer and do work. We have a lot of. We obviously have the list of all of the outstanding issues. So those are kind of being split between the devs. So Ellie was really just talking about the really big projects earlier on. So we do have other people working on fixing the general questions. On the website stuff, Isabel, I think it's a possibility that we may be looking at that. But what we're going to be focusing on with the new website is getting the. Obviously, we need to make sure that all of the existing stuff that's on the current website um, is up and running on the new one. And that the framework for things like registration is nice and solid, because we've got some other things that we would like to do with the registration to open it up to other possibilities, especially with business tie-ins. So we need to get the essentials sorted out first. Um, but I would think that the possibility of other payment methods is on a list as a possibility at some point. Area search, normal search. Yeah, search is something that we really do want to get fixed. It's on the list. Everything on Mantis, you may have noticed, is grouped together into different categories. And there are some issues with search. There are some issues with searching for events and that kind of thing. They're all on the list as issues to get fixed as soon as we can, as well as tying in the website calendars and things like that and fix the issues with those. Richard, mini grids. It's technically, we've covered that before. Mini grids are technically quite difficult to do, because you have to. I know when we've talked about this, the possibility of being able to, specialize certain things and lock certain things down, but open up other things. It's far easier um, technically for a business or whatever to have an area that they can just control access to do that. Doing anything beyond that requires some fairly serious engineering in the background, and it's to actually to change the server code and everything that goes with it enough to be able to support that may not be worth it at this point. The regions greater
Okay.
than 256 meters. That one comes up a lot, Snoots. I know you've asked about it a lot. Again, I know it sounds from a user point of view, it sounds like a really simple thing to do, but it really isn't. I mean, from working out the grid coordinates and things like that, which are tied into everything. They're tied into asset positions and all that kind of stuff. A region is a particular size, and there's an awful lot of code in there. Yes, OpenSim did it, but they rewrote that area of code. What I'm
Um,
saying is the complications involved in doing that are much bigger than most people realize. It would require huge rewrites
but
of
on the
great
flip
sections of the
side,
code.
the what exactly OpenSim did, it's what I consider a hack, to be perfectly honest. It
Yeah,
was everything is sitting on one server. So if you try to cross from one server to another server, you'll never be able to do it. That's why OpenSim does not have region crossings as far as from server to server. They
yeah.
didn't do it the way that InWorldz did, which allows you to do that. And well, Judy brought up a good point to me the other day, which is she's having issues with going across, with groups on her planes. We feel that that's probably tied to the asset issue that's going on right now. So once we fix that, she'll probably be a whole lot better off. Um, and again, it's most of that we're guessing is probably due to the assets problem. We've got timeouts on some assets that are absolutely horrendous, and even though you're on the asset, you would think that the asset would be there, right? But that's why we're going to do the LRU in front, so that's
Mhm.
cash, so that as you're using the asset and the people who are with you are using the asset, it's always instantly accessible. You never have to worry about it, because you have to understand, when you go from one server to another server, which is what you're doing, understand that we run something like 220 servers for all of the regions. All right. And that number may be off. I haven't actually done a count as of late. So, um, when you cross from one server to another server, that server, we're literally taking your asset, the scripts, your position, you, whoever's on it, and we're moving it all simultaneously over to the other server and reinstating you instantly and going.
Yep.
That's why we think the assets are the issue with it. Because prior to the long timeouts and whatnot from assets, region crossings were really great, clean, beautiful. They were working really well. And now suddenly they're not. And that's because we're seeing these really large timeouts coming through on assets. So, and if you have one asset that's timing out, well, then everything that's coming behind it is also going to be timing out, because that's just the way it
Yep.
goes.
It's got to be everything or nothing.
Yes. So that is why we feel that with the growing asset issue, this is why you're having the issues with the region crossings and why the LRU is so important that it gets done. So
Yeah,
we're not just tackling assets just to be tackling assets. We're attacking them because it's also part of your avatar resing issue. Again, it's all assets. It's everything that you're wearing is considered an asset. So it's all about getting those assets down and getting them resed immediately. So
yeah.
if something is timing out, guess what? It's causing a bottleneck. New dev hiring progressing. Well, I never actually opened up any dev hiring, so no, it's not progressing. Um, here's the thing, Judy. I'm going to be really blunt. When Trank first came on board, and he's a beautiful coder, all right, absolutely beautiful. I mean, software engineering, security, etc. Well, I hired Wolf, if that tells you anything. Okay, I mean, I did
Yeah,
hire Wolf,
exactly.
so as far as that goes, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I wish I could afford 5 Trank snoots. um, but here's the point though. So when he came on board, it took about a year of me actually guiding him through the OpenSim code. All right. And Jim, when we brought Jim on board, it took him a good year. It's taken Ricky's been working on the Halcyon code for a year, and he's working mostly on WIP LRU, which is actually a separate package outside of a Halcyon. It's the asset management system, but
Hmm.
it's still part of Halcyon. And yeah, our code is not something that you can just go hire a dev and say, do this, because virtual worlds in and of themselves are fairly complex. They're not a
Mm.
gaming system in that sense. I mean, I can go through games where I see they're using Unreal Engine 4, right?
Hmm.
And I can tell you all of Unreal Engine 4's little idiosyncrasies that drive me absolutely crazy. But this is just the base engine. If I wanted to go to Unreal, well, then we'd have all sorts of issues, and don't even talk to me about region crossings because they wouldn't exist. So we do something that's really, really unique code-wise, and I just want you to understand that if I wanted to hire a dev, if I was going to hire a dev, I would hire a dev from somebody within that I already know, such as Belpine. So Belpine was hired and he did all of the physics stuff. Okay. He did all that. We paid him for that. Mike Chase, if there's certain projects that we need, we hire him to do some of them. Um, so it's just that's just the way the nature of our business is. I'm not going to go put out an ad to hire devs. I'm just not going
It's
to.
it's so many different components that require very different specializations, different languages, different background experience. It doesn't make sense to go and take somebody on full time because you're not going to find somebody that's got all of the experience to cover all of that stuff. The same issues that we have with the hosting, where somebody says, "Oh, this particular kind of hosting will be brilliant for serving your assets." In worlds don't work the same. Virtual worlds are not the same kind of requirement as anything else. So even a huge company that promises, yes, this will fix this, probably doesn't realize that no, it won't, because the way that we are actually using those assets is completely contrary to what most of their other customers do. And it's the same when it comes to hiring expertise to do these things. It makes far more sense to find specialists to work on those specific areas in that particular language with say, the viewer developer needs to know about rendering 3D graphics. The person working on the server doesn't need to know that. The person working on the website certainly doesn't need to know that. It's great that all of the devs talk and support each other. You'd be incredibly lucky to find anybody that could do justice to all of those things. And you'd have to pay them a fortune. And it still wouldn't be the right solution. When you've got a budget, as Ellie said, that has to be spent wisely, then you look for specialists to do the little bits that need doing. That reminds me, Trouble asked, it's been asked by a couple of other people, Ellie, um, is InWorldz financially stable?
Yeah,
And
he
I
just
said,
put
you
that
need
there
to answer
again.
that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't hire Wolf if it wasn't.
exactly.
I'll just leave that right there.
Yeah.
As for your question, Snoots, yes, the servers right now can handle it. Obviously, there could be a huge problem if we suddenly got 300,000 people to try to log in at once. Maybe there's something there that we don't know. We probably would need actual more login servers if that were to be the case. All right. So obviously we want a nice progressive growth in that so that we can add more login servers. But yes, that has always been a concern of ours since day one. Um, and yeah, it definitely, we've got the flexibility to be able, if we need to, we can add more login servers and put them right where they need to go without much hassle to the grid. So there is that, and
Yes, I can.
scalability
Yeah,
is really 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 big.
was
And
one of the
that's
reasons for moving to the new hosting, was to
yes,
be scalable.
I think I've answered those questions, and yeah, those are definitely big. And um, like I say, when you say that you're looking at just server code, Judy, the server code, you can go look at the server code. It's sitting on GitHub.
Hmm.
You can literally
Everyone
go
can.
download it and take a look at it. We're not hiding anything. It's all right there. Um, and you can literally see that it would take somebody who's got quite a few years of programming, and even then they would still need some guidance on where things are at, how they affect, how they interlock. That's why when we brought Jim on, Jim had been a volunteer for us for what, 6 7 months. David, I didn't just bring him on, Trank. I didn't just bring him on at a whim. He went through his paces with me as well. So server hiring, yeah, if I find a great guy, great gal who can do coding and whatnot, and not break everything, I would definitely consider it. But trying to find somebody is always different. It's really really difficult. So
It's got to be somebody who's going to work well with everyone else too. That's another important thing with a project like this.
Corrado, Firestorm is not something that we necessarily worry about. Um, and that sounds harsh. It's not meant to be harsh. We know a lot of you use Firestorm, so we usually, encourage you guys to go deal with the Firestorm. But the last word that I heard in regards to Firestorm is that Firestorm is going to cease all development for OpenSim. It
Hmm.
has nothing to do with InWorldz, by the way. So, um, anybody can try to get a Phoenix Skin into an Alchemy viewer if you know how to do it. We would love
Hmm.
to see it. So I mean, I can't force Firestorm to do anything that they don't want to do, and if they're going to cut their strings from OpenSim, then so be it. That's what they're going to do. Yeah. Okay. So Isabel had asked earlier about extra payment options. Yes, that was actually in our talks just the other day. As a matter of fact, that we want to expand over to like Stripe and some other payment options, and get those going. And there are some things that Wolf is going to be working on the website to
Hmm.
help out in that area as well.
Yeah.
So, but those are
One
going to be further
one I
down.
was
The framework is huge.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said to people earlier on. It's we're discussing all sorts of things, about that. But we really have to, we can't use part of the old website and part of the new one. We have to get the framework and the basics in there before we can really look at the other stuff.
That will be, but it is definitely in consideration because it is, once we have the website to where it's a not an unmanageable mess, then we can start looking at expanding our different payment routines and things that we can
Yeah.
do for it.
I mean, that's why it's being done. That's why you start from, you can sort of you can let any piece of software evolve to a certain extent, but when you're suddenly, you have ideas that you can't put in place because the framework isn't strong enough for it. That's when you go back and rewrite it from scratch.
Will the
It's done
in-world viewer
specifically.
include the script preprocessor? Why would we want a script preprocessor? Okay, so I don't use Firestorm, obviously, because I'm an InWorldz official, so I use my InWorldz viewer. Um, I don't understand the necessity for the script preprocessor. It allows you to include e-libraries. Huh.
The possibility of having things like includes, some more. I mean, rather than focus on specific aspects of that, there's a whole load of things that we would really really like to be able to do with Flocks. As Judy just said, the scripting engine. There's a bunch of requests on Mantis about it. As somebody who does a lot of in-world scripting, there's a ton of stuff that I would like to be able to add to it. But again, it's a case of priorities. We've got a lot of issues that need fixing. We've got a lot of stability stuff that needs doing. And if we tried to schedule in all of those things, it becomes, really quite a challenge. And you do have to bear in mind, as we said about that being a firestorm thing, a lot of the things that we change until we can get the InWorldz viewer to the point where everybody wants to use that by preference. We have limitations on what we can change within the grid code, on the server code, because a lot of it actually requires a change to how the viewer works. And if there are people that are still using Firestorm or whatever, which we can't change, then we have to be very careful about this has been a long running issue for the devs about trying to add functionality that wouldn't be supported by the code editor in the viewer. But believe me, there's a lot of stuff for Flux that we would like to get added.
Yeah, Flux is one of those that can definitely be grown. But right now, honestly, for a 6-month roadmap, we have some very large challenges that we need to work out. And the big one is obviously assets and inventory. Those are the two
Yep.
biggest. And with the team that we have, this is what I've outlined. It is, this is what they can do in the next 6 months, and they're fairly big. Well, I get that. I get that, Kitty, but we're not telling Firestorm to stop doing what they're doing. So seriously, if you want to continue to use Firestorm and InWorldz, I'm good with it. Really, I don't have an issue with it. But this isn't on us to make them do what you want them to do. That you really need to go talk to Firestorm.
And if they're seriously considering pulling out from doing OpenSim because InWorldz is growing further and further away from what OpenSim is doing, and they can't
No,
maintain two
actually, it
completely
has nothing to
different
do with
viewers,
that.
then it's very unlikely that they're going to start developing things for another world.
The Firestorm breaking away from OpenSim has nothing to do with InWorldz whatsoever. Just let me put that out there.
Oh, okay.
I'm not at liberty to say because that's
all right.
That's not my thing. It
I know
given
that's
to me in
been a
private.
struggle for them, so I wondered if it was behind it.
No, it
Apologies
has
for the
everything to
misinformation on
do
that one.
with OpenSim and nothing to do with InWorldz.
Okay.
No, Judy, I'm sorry, I
Minus.
can't. I wish I could. I wish I could just shout that out to this because honestly, it just sort of makes me
I
giggle.
understand.
But I can't. But I can't tell you that. Yeah, Snoots, you and I can beat the drum over IDI for years to come, to be honest. But it'll probably get changed at some point in time. But right now, it's not going to get changed right at this moment. And the reason being is, remember my little discussion earlier about doing things out of the box. IDI is a showcase for the reason why you can do things out of the box, the build itself. So keep that in mind. At some point, it will get changed, but right now, once we get the platform where we want it to be and where we're headed in the direction that I discussed earlier, then it will get changed out because then we can move to where we need it to go to. Okay. And Judy, I'm sorry if that offends you. I'm not trying to offend you, but there are things that I'm given in information. Would you have preferred me not to tell you this at all?
No, I'm going to take responsibility for this. It's me going with an assumption based on something that I'd heard that needed correcting. Otherwise, this wouldn't have come up. It's not information that Ellie can share. I'm not going to ask her to tell me, and I'm now one of the devs. It's going to be proprietary information. So
actually, you do actually know it. You just have to go back and read the dev chat, and you'll see it. But the fact is that it was given to the devs in private, and therefore I cannot violate that. So I'm sorry. It's just I wanted to give everybody a heads up so that they were aware of it. That's all I can do.
My mistake needed correcting, and I think that's fair. Anyway, let's move on from this one.
Okay, yeah, let's move on. Any other questions from anybody? So what happened was, yes, we had a big set of servers that had to get maintenance, and yes, we have to do the rest of the servers, as a matter of fact. But with my travel schedule, and I had my daughter here for 2 weeks after that, I really didn't want Mai to be stranded with trying to do the maintenance restarts because I was not going to be totally available to help her if anything went completely kaplooey. So yes, we will be restarting the Sims. and we will definitely be posting them up, and we'll probably be doing one server per week until they're all done, because everything needs to be restarted, everything needs to get up. And so yeah, we will definitely be getting back to those again. That way we know. And daily, that's for Wolf. You can ask him privately, because the marketplace is totally separate from InWorldz. um let me scroll up. Okay, Ashley asked, how often on the login destination photos change? Actually, they're completely random. I think right now we have something like 20 or 30 login photos in there. If you need to, just send them over to me via my email address, and we'll put them into the rotation, and they just randomly pop up. So, and then about once every 4 or 5 months, we try to clean them out and get the locations that don't exist anymore. So you're pixelated right now in the InWorldz viewer? Is that what you're trying to say? Probably has something to do with what you're wearing. If you put in a support ticket, we can probably get you sorted out, Crido. It's fairly easy. Take a screenshot, send in a support ticket, and I'll log you in and fix you. It's what I do. I'm good at it. Okay, Priscilla, that should go into a support ticket.
I'm going to answer Daly's question because several people have asked me. Yes, the marketplace is still down for a couple of reasons. A personal reason in real life, and getting up to speed. I've been looking at the existing web server stuff and sort of laying out plans and whatever for working on that. It will definitely be back up by the end of February, but I'm aiming for the middle of February. One of the reasons for that is that I'm actually developing a completely new approach to the in-world devices, the depots and signs and things like that, so that they can be, it's what's called a thin client approach, which means that they use a script which basically doesn't have any rules written into it. And it's the server that drives rules like how often it should, query from the server, who can click it, what it does when people click it, which means that any changes that I need to make to that can all be done on the server without having to issue versions of the code out, versions of depots and signs and TP pads and all that kind of stuff. And that's a complicated thing to do. There's a lot of security issues involved in that. So that's part of why it's been delayed. But then it means that all of the new sort of in-world devices and all the stuff for the upcoming tools will all be based on that new architecture. So it'll work, it'll be a lot more under control without requiring loads of in-world updates. So that's the other reason it's been delayed.
Ark, for you, I have written down Linux viewer so that I can talk to Cinder for you. It is now added to my task list. You're very welcome. Any other questions? I know we're going to be tinkering with that timeout, Lexi, because we obviously want to make it long enough for you to be using your assets and not strain the system, and also making sure that we have enough assets there that nobody's getting that long timeout. So that's going to be a value that's going to be tinkered with, and we're going to see what best case is before I come up with an actual answer. If I tried to say it's going to be 30 seconds or 3 months or a year, we honestly, I obviously it's not going to be 30 seconds. That'd be ridiculous. But we have to see how quickly it fills up, and we have to see how long the assets are used for before they need to move on to something else.
Do you see the question from Woody? We've been asked, or Ellie's been asked that several times before, but it probably needs a definitive answer again for everybody here. Woody's asked why has InWorldz never looked for outside funding?
We have actually. We've had offers, as a matter of fact. But here's the thing. Number one, the offers were incredibly low. Would not have done much for InWorldz while giving up a great big large chunk of share of control over the company, which obviously is always something that you want to worry about. With what I said earlier, you may have heard a keyword in there, and if you didn't, I highly advise you to go back over the video when it's released.
Yes.
And that is all I will say about that.
Yep.
So, anyways, I'm just gonna leave it there because everybody likes a good mystery, and it gives you a reason to watch the video again, Woody.
Go back and watch it. Yeah, I will just say I've worked for a couple of companies that have got to a stage where they were ready to expand, and they've looked for outside funding. And sometimes it seems like a good deal. You get a little bit that's going to take you to the next stage, and you only have to give up 20% of your company. Well, what happens when you want to expand again?
Mm-hmm.
because these things come in layers, literally in layers of funding, and you really have to be careful to look at the long view, because I've worked for companies that have done that, and they've all of a sudden ended up with less than 50%, and they've totally lost control. So you really do have to be getting an incredible deal from somebody. Usually, you're also looking for somebody that can bring something more than money. You're looking for somebody that's got a particular expertise that's of benefit to you, and that's difficult in this field because there aren't many people doing virtual worlds. There isn't that much expertise out there. Gaming funders aren't the same. Just my own personal note on that, it really, really isn't that easy.
No, it's not. And the people that we did have interested who were into virtual worlds, et cetera, in the past, could not bring much to the table for what the control was
Yeah.
that they wanted.
Yep.
And so that was a no go with us right off the bat. So yeah, we've had people who've come to us about funding, but apparently they thought that we should just roll over and say yes, we'll take anything. But no, we didn't. And both Trank and I stuck to our guns on that. So, are there any other questions that I can cover before I finally say I'm gonna head off and do things? I really wanted to take the time and just be here for you guys today because I know that this was a really important episode for all of you. So, if you have any questions, this is the time to ask me. All right. So if we're done, guys, I really want to say thank you. You guys were absolutely great. Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking
Yeah.
for so many questions, for being so patient. Even though I barfed technical jargon all over you, I'm sorry. I think Wolf has some napkins if you want to clean up.
Yeah.
Um, and if you guys ever need, I'm usually going to be around on Discord. So if you really do just, I lurk. I lurk on Discord. I'm there all the time except for when I'm sleeping or actually out and about. But it's on my phone. It's on my iPad. I do ask you, if you're on Discord, please do not use it for support. Okay,
Yeah.
do not private message me for support. I have taken a lot of time over the last couple of years making sure that all of our support goes to support, our Mantis goes to Mantis, and getting the devs on track with this and getting everybody on track so that we all stay on track. So do me a favor, don't use it for support. I will generally ask general questions, answer general questions, things like that. But if you actually have a support issue, it needs to go into a support ticket. Okay. But I love everybody being on the Discord because it really does give me a chance to talk to all of you guys, especially when I spend most of my day in conference calls or doing paperwork because I can't be on the grid. It's really nice that I can just pop in and I can say a few things and I can talk to all of you and you're there and you get a little bit of that chance to talk to me again. So I really do encourage you, if you can, be there. You don't have to be in voice. You can just text and just have it there, and it's all good. So I really do encourage everybody, and thank you for all of those who have already shown up there and been really, really awesome. So again, if you want to be a merchant for the birthday bash, please get a hold of EC, let her know. And I look forward to seeing you guys next month for our next episode. I have no idea who we're going to have on because I've been so roadmap crazy. It's not even funny. Love you all, and let the fish fights commence.
Bye, guys.